Welcome to American Old West Tales, where we unravel the tales of the Wild West's most infamous outlaws. Today, we delve into the history of deadly tools that John Wesley Hardin used and his turbulent life as an outlaw. Hardin was a gunslinger whose name still echoes throughout history. Join us as we uncover the weapons that made him one of the deadliest men of his time and explore the events that turned a young man into a legend. From fierce shootouts to narrow escapes, Hardin's life was a whirlwind of danger and notoriety. There's more to Hardin's story than just gunfights and outlaws' deeds. We'll also reveal the man behind the myth, his struggles with the law, his attempts at reform, and his tragic end. Discover how a combination of skill, luck, and sheer audacity made Hardin a formidable figure in the annals of the Wild West. Stay tuned as the tale of Hardin's life and the cold steel he wielded will leave you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to subscribe.
For years, there's been a deep fascination with the gunmen of the Wild West, particularly among firearms enthusiasts intrigued by the weapons they wielded. Unlike many Wild West gunmen who left behind scant records of their firearms, John Wesley Hardin is well documented as having owned or used several specific guns during his tumultuous career. Moreover, thanks to his autobiography, when details about his firearms are lacking, we can infer which guns were likely used on specific dates based on historical production records and other known facts about firearms of that time. However, it's worth noting that Hardin's autobiography includes some shootings that aren't corroborated elsewhere and are therefore considered questionable. John Wesley Hardin, conceivably the most deadly of the ancient West's shooters, was the incredible outlaw whose career kept going 3 decades, counting nearly 16 a long time in jail, bridging the crevice between the percussion period of the late 1860s and the age of metallic cartridge rifles by 1895. While firearms were simply tools to him, Hardin clearly had a deep appreciation for their mechanics and craftsmanship, evident in his skilled handling of weapons. Hardin possessed remarkable speed and skill with firearms. To say he was proficient with guns would be an understatement. Throughout his life, he was revered as the finest marksman, the quickest draw, a skilled horseman, and the most lethal gunman in the West, and this reputation wasn't just hearsay. Tough men who witnessed and respected his prowess with six-shooters documented his abilities. In the later years of his outlaw career, around 1877, when Hardin was captured by the Texas Rangers, renowned Ranger James B. Gillett was among those who unshackled Hardin and watched in awe as he demonstrated his mastery with a pair of empty Colts. Gillett recalled that Hardin handled the Colts with the finesse of a magician handling a coin, effortlessly performing tricks like the lightning draw, spins, rolls, and precise target shifts. A resident of Smiley, Texas, recalled to Hardin's great-grandson that he once witnessed a young Hardin mount a horse, gallop towards a tree at full speed, and unleash his gun with such accuracy that the bullets clustered tightly around a knot in the tree. Another contemporary recalled that Hardin was lightning quick with a six-shooter in his youth, faster than a frog catching a fly. During his time in El Paso, despite aging and spending nearly 2 decades away from guns in prison, Hardin maintained his remarkable speed. A witness who observed him in action in 1895 remarked, "Hardin was incredibly fast. I was in Mexico one night with him when a policeman tried to arrest him for carrying a gun. The officer reached for his weapon, but he didn't have time to draw it. Hardin struck him in the face and then, drawing his own gun, ordered the man to leave town, revealing his identity at the same time. The Mexican never returned and hasn't been seen since, I bet." In El Paso, Hardin sensed his skills declining as he entered his early 40s, reflecting in his autobiography, "In those days, I was a crack shot." Every day in El Paso, he rehearsed in front of a mirror in his boarding room. According to accounts from the time, he wore a special calfskin vest with built-in holsters for his 2 Colt .41 caliber revolvers, although neither this vest nor a supposed bulletproof vest he wore have ever been found. Mrs. Williams of the Herndon house, Hardin's landlady, confirmed in an interview with the El Paso Daily Times on August 23, 1895, barely 4 days after his murder, that Mr. Hardin was particularly quick with his pistols. "I've seen him unload his guns, tuck them into his pocket, walk across the room, and then suddenly spring to one side, spinning around. In a flash, he'd have a gun in each hand, clicking so fast it sounded like a rattling machine. She proceeded. He would slip his firearms inside his pants at the front, muzzles out. Then he'd snatch them out by the muzzle and with a lightning-fast movement, grab them by the handle and have them clicking together in perfect rhythm. As a final testament to Hardin's speed and marksmanship, El Paso Constable John Selman, himself a renowned gunman, fatally shot Hardin in the back. During much of Hardin's early career, spanning from 1868 to 1877, he relied heavily on cap-and-ball revolvers. During this time, self-contained metallic cartridge firearms were still relatively new and not as widely available as they would become in later years. In his autobiography, Hardin frequently mentions Colt's revolvers. Judging by the timeline of his gunfights, these likely included the Model 1860 Army 44s or the 1851 and 1861 Navy models in .36 caliber, possibly even cartridge conversions. One specific revolver known to have been used by Hardin was an 1851 Navy .36, identified by its serial number in a letter written by Joe Clements, Hardin's cousin. In the letter, Joe describes how Hardin handed him the revolver after he interfered in a brawl in Gonzales, Texas. Hardin then obtained a newer model revolver. Hardin mentions using a Colt .44, likely the 1860 Army model, in his first killing in 1868, involving a freed slave who had assaulted him. Shortly afterward, he likely relied on the same revolver when a posse of 3 soldiers tracked him down to arrest the 15-year-old for the shooting. The young fugitive chose an ambush spot near a deep creek bed where the troopers had to cross, and there he attacked them. Hardin started the fight with a double-barreled shotgun and ended it with a cap-and-ball 6-shooter, calling it a duel to the death. Several years later, when Hardin was captured in Pensacola, Florida, on July 23, 1877, he was found with a .44 cap-and-ball Army Colt revolver from the 1860 model. He couldn't draw his revolver because it was strapped to his suspenders, much to the relief of the arresting officers. In his tales of many other conflicts, Hardin doesn't delve into specifics about the types of weapons he used. Like many Westerners of his time, Hardin simply referred to them as cap-and-ball 6-shooters or just his pistol. Texas's infamous Public Enemy No. 1 also mentioned using a derringer to shoot a man. Again, he doesn't specify the type or caliber, as such weapons back then could vary widely among the small concealable pistols available. One of Hardin's 6 guns is a Smith & Wesson Model 3 Russian first model, chambered in Russian, which he used to assassinate Deputy Sheriff Charles Webb in Comanche, Texas, on May 26, 1874. This shooting resulted in Hardin's subsequent capture and incarceration. It is conceivable that this is the only known metallic cartridge 6-shooter from Hardin's criminal days before his incarceration. While he preferred pistols, Hardin is known to have utilized long arms in multiple shootouts. In addition to the aforementioned 1868 incident where he used a double-barreled shotgun to kill soldiers, Hardin also used a shotgun to kill Jack Helm in July 1873. Helm, a former Texas police captain and DeWitt County sheriff, was also a fierce competitor of Hardin in the famed Sutton-Taylor fight. As Helm neared, Hardin, who was affiliated with the Taylors, opened fire with a double-barreled 12-gauge percussion shotgun made by British company W&C Scott & Son. Hardin's colleague, Jim Taylor, then shot the sheriff many times in the head with his 6-gun. This particular shotgun of Hardin's is now showcased at the Buckhorn Saloon and Museum in San Antonio, Texas. On another occasion, the malfunction of a cap prevented a lawman from becoming another of Hardin's victims. During a frantic horse chase in light rain, Hardin and Jim Taylor were fleeing after shooting Deputy Sheriff Webb. When Texas Ranger Captain John R. Waller caught up to them, he charged aggressively. Hardin later recalled, "I turned, stopped my horse, and cocked my shotgun. I had a handkerchief covering the tube's nipples to keep the caps dry, but when I pushed the trigger, the wind blew it away and the hammer landed on the handkerchief." That twist of fate spared his life. Waller reined in his horse and retreated to his comrades. Hardin also kept rifles in his personal collection. In his book, he remembers firing at law enforcement officers pursuing him with a needle gun, a name from the frontier era that refers to the 50-70 Allen adaptation of the Springfield rifle, an early type with a trapdoor mechanism. During another incident in 1871, while herding cattle to Kansas, Hardin took cover with his Winchester rifle in the bushes of his campsite and surprised a group of men pursuing him. Considering the time frame of this event, it probably involved Winchester's 1866 model, originally known as the Improved Henry. After being released from prison in February 1894, the governor of Texas granted Hardin a full pardon. Shortly after passing the bar, while in prison, Hardin had tried to change his ways by studying law and theology. He began practicing law. However, his inner turmoil persisted, and the fiery-tempered Hardin quickly returned to his former habits of gambling and drinking. The firearms from the later years of this notorious Texas gunslinger are well documented in official court records, from his arrest and subsequent death, revealing an intriguing collection of handguns. They included a nickel-plated 2.5-inch ejectorless model 1877 Colt double-action Lightning in .38 caliber with two-piece pearl grips. Killer Jim Miller, his cousin-in-law, gave him this weapon as a gift, along with an engraved and gold-filled Elgin pocket watch, a watch chain, and a coin watch fob, in exchange for representing him in court. Hardin also owns two. The 1877 Colt double-action Thunderer features 41 long Colt chambers. One was a 4.5-inch barrel, ivory-handled nickel-plated pocket revolver with an ejector, while the other had a 5-inch barrel, nickel-plated, intricately engraved, and featured two-piece pearl grips. Hardin also owned an ivory-handled 4.75-inch barreled 1873 Colt single-action Army, chambered in .45 Colt, with a nickel finish and the ejector housing removed, likely modified by Hardin himself for quicker drawing from his pocket. Hardin's 1873 Peacemaker, along with one of his 41 long Colt 1877 Colts, the ivory-handled 4.5-inch model, are exhibited at the Autry National Center's Museum of the American West in Los Angeles, California. At the time of his death, 42-year-old Hardin carried a Smith & Wesson double-action Frontier in .44 to .40 caliber with black factory hard rubber grips. On the afternoon of August 19, 1895, Hardin jeopardized the lives of Constable John Selman and his son. That night, Selman entered the Acme Saloon in El Paso, where the notorious gunman was drinking and gambling, and calmly shot Hardin in the back of the head with a Colt .45 Peacemaker, killing him instantly. Ironically, Selman claimed that Hardin had noticed him enter the Acme and reached for his guns, although few believed this account. Interestingly, Episcopal minister E.H. Higgins, summoned to the Acme after the shooting, remarked that if Selman had shot Hardin through the eye from the front, it would demonstrate remarkably good marksmanship. Shooting him from behind, however, showed remarkably good judgment. If Selman had fought Hardin in a fair battle, the result may have been different. J.W. Hardin was quite adept with his 6 guns. In his final year, he staged shooting exhibitions where he perforated faro cards, signed them, and handed them out as keepsakes. Most historians, who have examined these cards closely, believe Hardin used his .41 caliber double-action 1877 Colts for these displays. A few of these unique gunfighter souvenirs still exist and command high prices among collectors, just like any of Hardin's firearms. Although Hardin was a skilled pistolier who excelled in close-range combat with handguns, he also recognized the importance of a shotgun. This 12-gauge, percussion WNC, Scott & Son English shotgun was used by Hardin in July 1873 to kill Jack Helm, the sheriff of DeWitt County, Texas, and a formidable adversary in the Sutton-Taylor feud. Hardin later gifted this shotgun to Sheriff J.C. Jones of Gonzales County, Texas. This well-worn 1851 Navy Colt and its modified military holster came with a handwritten letter from Hardin's cousin, Joe Clements. In the letter to his daughter, Amanda, Joe explained that Hardin had given him the .36 caliber revolver after Joe intervened in a fight in Gonzales, Texas. This 5-inch barrel, nickel-plated, engraved, pearl-handled .41 Colt Thunderer was seized from Hardin in May 1895 by Agent Sheriff Will Ten Eyck for illicitly carrying a gun in the Diamond Cantina in El Paso, Texas. The weapon was never returned to him, and Ten Eyck afterwards settled the split grip. A lethal handgun match. Smith & Wesson is the greatest option. After Constable John Selman shot Hardin, the .44-40 Wilderness two-fold activity gun was recovered from his body. Selman used the 1873 Colt single-action, to take down one of the West's most famed and deadly shooters. This reflection was taken at El Paso's Top Cantina on the night of Admirable 19, 1895, when Constable John Selman shot and killed John Wesley Hardin. Harden was supposedly confronting the reflect and rolling dice for drinks at the time. His final words were allegedly, "You have 4 6s to beat." The bullet that passed through Harden's head is said to have ricocheted off this reflect, sometime recently being recovered. During shooting presentations, Harden utilized his .41 caliber two-fold activity 1877 Colts to shoot gaps through faro cards.